Good afternoon, everybody. This is beautiful Becca again with another edition of my reading live, or what I like to call Thursdays Through the Page. Now, it's been a while since I did any reading logs. This last month and a half was extremely busy, and some health issue. I had some more health issues that unfortunately came up, and I had to take care of that. And I have another appointment next week, which I'm not looking forward to. But I did hear back from one of my favorite authors, and we're looking at April 19th for the next interview, and I will let you guys know on the community tab for the next time. Okay? In the meantime, let's get into this, and I will let you know exactly just how far I went. So if you are new to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Beautiful Becca on the YouTube channel. I am also known as self-published author Becca B. My book, The Almost Halloween Baby, is on Amazon KDP, and I will be having a book launch towards maybe around, I want to say August this year, from my publishing company that I managed to have my book published through them. So I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, please click like and subscribe if you wish to see more of these behind the scenes of the stories that I've read and the reading blogs. And also, I have an art project that I am hoping to get done before this third interview for this month. And I am hoping to create a video so you guys can see exactly what I did. So on my reading life, I do a deep dive into the books that I've read for the month. And because the second interviewee was the Newbery Award-winning author Avi, I read a whole bunch of his stories, some of which I included in here. And one of them is on the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge list. So let's get started. And this is where we left off. So let's take a look. This book here is called The Book Without Words, and as you can see here on the top, this is the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. This one I have here is called The Book Without Words, A Fable of Medieval Magic. Now, according to Avi, he wrote this after he won the Newbery Award for Crispin, the Cross of Lead. This one wasn't that really popular, and it kind of faltered. I can see why. The story itself was interesting. I just thought that it could have used, I don't know, I just felt like it could have gone forward a little bit more. But on the dates that I read it, it was from February 2nd to the 8th. What drew me to the cover, and what I didn't love about the cover, I actually gave the cover a rating of 5 because it had a medieval, well, as it says here, the words medieval magic and the image of the crow perched on the skull is very Poe-esque. So if anyone is familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, you have the most famous poem that he ever wrote, The Raven. And usually when it comes to Edgar Allan Poe, it's usually of a raven or sometimes even a crow perched atop a white skull. Lastly, it appears to have a Celtic design on the border. Why I chose this book. I believe I chose this book as an audiobook at first, years ago, but it has a pet character named Odo, which meets the book prompt. So on the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, this book prompt was in the advanced section, and it has to do with a book with a pet character. Now, other books I have read or plan to read by this author, check if I have already read them. So yes, one of the books I did read was called The Player King. That one was an interesting story. It sort of was a takeoff on, I believe, one of the Richards who was mistaken for the real king. The School of the Dead, that's one of the books that I have written in my reading life, as well as The Seer of Shadows. The second book I actually read from Avi was something called The Secret School. Most of these stories are aimed toward middle grade. The feelings this book invoked in me Well, first of all, it's a fable. So each character gave his or her own moral to the other character, but the message transcends to the reader to contemplate, to ponder. And the morals, I would say, are located in the favorite passages. So let's take a look. A life unlived is like a book without words, and apparently this is the first quote that you see at the very beginning of the story, and it's an old proverb. Death gives life to memories. Odo. So these are quotes from Odo the Crow. Live long enough and all become orphans, says Odo. There's a character in here called Alfric. The shorter the sermon, the longer the truth. And he who steals learns nothing. He who learns need not steal, Brother Wilfred. So, if you want the brunt of the story, it basically goes something like this. There is this, I want to say he's a priest. It's been a while since I wrote up the story, and there's a lot more passages that I did write down in my own journal for this. But apparently there's this old alchemist who is trying to find a miraculous way to stay young. He's trying to turn metal into gold. But apparently there's these green stones of magic that he's kept somewhere within his home. He has a servant girl, and I completely forgot her name right now. And she comes into possession after she finds her master dead. And in the middle of all this, Brother Wilfred is trying to find this alchemist who stole the stones from a sacred place, and before anyone else comes into possession of these stones, which it's sort of like the precious of the Lord of the Rings. It's like it can be a blessing to some to have all the power in the world, but it's also a curse. So in the middle of all this, they're trying to prevent this alchemist from taking someone else's life in order to stay young, because taking a person's life with the green stones is part of the process. Alfric is an orphan who comes into play. Odo is the crow who basically is also considered the master's second-to-none servant. And they each have a part to play. The ending is bittersweet. I'm just going to say it. So if you are interested in anything medieval and medieval magic, you might want to take a look at this. A look at the story. Did reading this book change me in any way? Not really, but I learned a tiny bit more of medieval history about this obsession to live forever and the secrets of alchemy. So, medieval times, we're talking the Great Plague, the Great Black Plague. People did not live for very long. Around the late age of 30, I think, was the average median age for a person to continue to live. If a person lived beyond that, like into their 50s or 60s, that was a miracle in itself. But there was this obsession from many to learn how to live forever. Who would I like to share this book with? I wrote down Mike Lodes. Now, if anyone here has ever seen the documentary Going Medieval, that was the first time I actually heard of this documentarian. He is a historian who likes getting his hands dirty by going back in time in history and reenacting it. And I loved Going Medieval, by the way, and I would consult him for any kind of medieval history question that I had to ponder. What would I hope for him to take away from it? Maybe to do a special documentary of saint worship during the Middle Ages. There's so many names of saints. One of these saints is named Saint Afleda, and I completely forgot what her, I don't want to call it a doctrine, but I forgot what her saintly purpose was. Not recommended? Yes and no. It's not, I want to say it's not Avi's best, as he said himself, but the moral message is worth reading. The writing style, I would say it was just okay for this one. The message from the morals itself was, I loved it. And the reading experience was okay. There were some funny parts in it, but I'm like, how many times can that part be repeated? So that was The Book Without Words by Avi, and that was my take on it. I did not get a chance to write up this one, favorite authors, coffee, dinner, or drinks, and some of you have seen the first one where every every 4 pages after you write in the title, they'll have like these little segments that you can write in. Now, I took a little break from Avi at some point, and then I ended up, again, this is a huge shout out to Darling Desi for pointing this book out. She had a book called Cosy, The British Art of Comfort by Laura Weir. And I don't remember when I read it, but I want to say it was around February 8th or the 9th. It's a book you can read It's a book you can read in a day. It's all about the British art of comfort. And it is so cute. I put a 4 for the cover. What drew me to the cover, what I didn't like about it, I actually was inspired to read the book, not by Desi Moore, but book recommended by Desi Moore. Like me, she's a bookworm, loves tea, and I want to say a craftsy fairy, but she also is an English British Isles fanatic. So anything with Jane Austen and Bridgerton, Anne of Green Gables, tea. But she just happened to have a whole bunch of these British books of these book hauls that she ended up buying. So I decided to read the book myself. Why I chose this book. I love England. Why not learn more about the comfort British people are accustomed to? Other books I have read or plan to read by this author, I have yet to figure out what other titles that she has written. Laura Weir is a journalist. The feelings this book invoked in me, I wrote nostalgia. I've been to the UK twice. So the first time I was there was in 2001. The next time was in 2007. It'd be nice to live there for a spell and soak it up more, to soak up more of the culture. Favorite passages. Oh my God. I could practically buy this book. I kind of wrote down not everything, but I love the illustrations. So I kind of drew those down, made a couple of copies and just posted them into my journal just for my own sake. But favorite passages. So there's a whole bunch, but these were my tops. These are my top faves. In the British Isles, being cold gives us permission to be lazy, and there is nothing better than that. Stopping still and cozying up has become luxury for our time. And this was from the intro. A cuppa, like a cup of tea. A cuppa kickstarts our day and mends our broken hearts. No further from the truth than that. And this was my favorite passage, my favorite quote. In my mind, anyone who sleeps barefoot in the winter is a psychopath. Which is kind of like why in the series, as time goes by, with the wonderful Judi Dench and the late Jeffrey Palmer, those two are always wearing bed socks. And I never wear bed socks because my feet turn out to be too cold at first, but then they get too hot, and I usually don't really wear socks. Anyway, did reading this book change me in any way? I want to learn to adapt British comfort into my own life to make myself feel more complete and comfortable. As I said here, a cozy state of mind is the greatest medicine. Who would I like to share this book with? My good friend Laura. What would I hope for her to take away from it? Learn the art of coziness to add some light into our lives. We both have European ties. Not recommended? Heck, I would recommend this book to anybody. Reread? No, but I've written down what I need to read it yet again. And the ratings, I gave it all. Loved it, loved it, loved it. From writing style, message, and the reading experience. But also based on the cover. Now, I don't remember. There's I think a couple of different versions of the cover. I don't remember if mine had the red, white, and blue tea kettle or the teacup with the tea bag sipping out. I'm going to have to look back at my journal and see for myself. Back to Avi. Now, this isn't the one that I read first. The one I actually did... you know what? I'm actually going to skip this one for the moment because this is the one that I read first. Don't You Know There's a War On? I want to say I read this between mid-February to late February. The cover, I gave it a 3. I could have probably have given it a 4. But the poster girl riding a bomb, and her outfit is American patriotic colors, and she salutes the young boy who's staring at her outside the picture. Why I chose this book? It covers World War II history. New York. And after I did the interview with Avi, he grew up in New York and he had lived during that time. Other books I have read or plan to read by this author. So these are all the books that I haven't read yet, that I still have from the library. Loyalty and Sophia's War, I believe those two are based on the Revolutionary War. To Tell the Truth, and the last book of Avi's I read was Beyond the Western Sea, Book 1, which is called Escape from Home. It's written in the Dickensian style, and if you watch the interview, you'll understand why I was ready to jump out of my seat, and if you read the book, you'll be in that same mindset. The feelings this book invoked in me. Empowerment of young children they used the Declaration of Independence because it was a protest, and they used that as inspiration to help save their teacher from being fired. And I'll go more into that onto this page here. So favorite passages. Some of the quotes, I have to say, tell more of an historic truth, which is why I love writing these quotes down. If these quotes cover like how-tos that were accurately done during the day, like if any of these quotes hold truth, that's why I write them down. If they're inspirational or if they're spreading a message, that's another reason I write them down. If there's a description of something so beautiful that I don't want to forget it, I have to write the entire thing down. I don't care if it's an entire chapter, and I have done that. So here's something interesting. So this was, the character's name was, it was either Horace or Harold Crispers. He's the young protagonist of the story. And these are basically his days in school during World War II in New York. Hanging around my neck was what we called a dog tag. So guess what, everyone? Soldiers were not the only ones who wore dog tags. All his kids had to wear them, in case the enemy attacked, like at Pearl Harbor, and people wanted to know who your body was. Apparently, I guess, I'm not sure if this was done in all states, but apparently, yeah, kids had to wear dog tags too. So it wasn't just the soldiers. They were not the only ones fighting on the front lines. Trying to fight to stay alive in school was their student civil duty to do so, and they went about it the proper way. I mean, heck, when it came to England, they suffered through the Blitz. I'm not sure if anyone there was wearing dog tags or not. Later on, it also goes more into what you could see in storefront windows or house apartment windows or something like that. There were red, white, and blue flags. If there were blue stars, that meant someone was in the armed forces, the military, or the Navy. Then it says here, there were gold stars too. Gold meant someone who had been in the military or the Navy had been killed. So throughout the days when these kids are waiting to hear back from their families, from fathers who went overseas, and mothers who worked as nurses, they were all waiting for family members to come home. And if there was a gold star in the window, that meant that person was killed. Did reading this book change me in any way? I wrote, teachers are better off now and can't be fired for expecting, and children don't wear dog tags. However, considering the continuous school shootings, as we have seen, and I sort of leave it off there. So we don't, as teachers, sometimes we will have I'm not a teacher, right? I will always be an educator. I'm not teaching right now. But as educators, when it comes to staff, we have to have our our name tags. Some schools require students to have their name tags on them or some sort of like a student code. If there's a school shooting and if we're not wearing them, how are they to identify, well, dare I say it, how are they to identify the students and teachers? How do they do that? So this made me think back in the day, dog tags were the way to identify you. It's just weird. It's uncanny. And it's a feeling of complete helplessness. And it's a way of everyone getting prepared for the worst. But later on, the dog tags were no longer needed. For me, I don't know about anyone else, but it really makes you think about what's happening today. Who would I like to share this book with? Again, my friend Laura, because we're both into World War II history, specifically the Holocaust. What would I hope for her to take away from it? She's a World War II history writing. What did I write down? Writing. I don't know what I wrote here. For her research on the Holocaust, I'm wondering if I'm wondering if the refugees, so we're both writing stories about the Holocaust, and we still have a lot more research to do, but I'm wondering if any of the refugees, especially children who came over from Europe, I'm wondering if they also had to wear dog tags when they went to the schools. The writing style, I loved it. Message was clear, and reading experience, loved it as well. Let's go back to the one that I read afterwards, which was an interesting ghost story called School of the Dead by Avi. I don't remember, sometime again in mid-February. The cover, I gave it a 3. This cover of the School of the Dead, not so much the cover, what drew me to the book, it was the story. I wanted to read the majority of his works. The cover shows a school building with a boy running away from it. Kind of like a bird's eye view looking down. I've always been interested in haunted stories and some connection to the San Francisco earthquake and ghosts. Because the school itself, it's called the Penda School, was built around the time just after, I want to say it was after the San Francisco earthquake, the great San Francisco earthquake of 1906. So that quake, the school, and the spiritual Panda boy have something to do with the story. That's all I'm going to tell you. So let me see. Yes, other books I have read by this author. So these ones I have read. Don't you know there's a war on, which I just discussed. Beyond the Western Sea, book 1. That is the last entry for this month. Crispin the Cross of Lead. I read that, I think, back in high school. And this one I'm in the middle of reading now. It's called The Unexpected Life of Oliver Cromwell Pitts. The feelings the book invoked in me, this new boy, and I forgot the boy's name. I think it's I don't think it's Charlie. I think Uncle Charlie was the ghost. I forgot who the boy was. But the boy, after his Uncle Charlie dies, Charlie seems to, his spirit seems to linger, to stick around the young boy. And the young boy is the one that he could only talk to. But because of this, Charlie had suggested that the family go to San Francisco, that he goes to a new school. And guess what? Whenever someone goes to a new school, it's all about peer pressure, about trying to fit in. So it's peer pressure and questioning who to trust, even when it comes to family. Unfortunately, I've experienced both. So I'm not going to get too far into this, but, when it comes to school, students are often pressured into choosing sides to be either with the hip crowd, the cool crowd, the scientific crowd, or the all out there expressive crowd. And it's like, there should all be this feeling of acceptance between everybody. And unfortunately, even for this century, students are still going through that. So favorite passages. So what I love about authors is often they will take quotes from well-known, well, I'm just going to say this, celebrities or very famous people who contributed to history, to science, to academics, to new ways of, trying to think of the word here. Yeah, who basically contributed to this world, and they left it a little bit better than when they found it. I'm taking it right out of Andrew Garfield here, people. So, this is a quote by Albert Einstein. It says here, "The destruction between past, present, and future is only an illusion." And this is from the ghost character, Uncle Charlie. Remember the number 7, the most important number in the universe. Now, I spelled out my name, which has 7 letters, and I put a question in the journal, am I connected to the cosmos? Because the number 7, if you are religious, the world was created in 7 days. There's something about the number 7 that goes beyond the universe and beyond the cosmos. I don't recall who said these quotes here, but the word depressed, it's like living half dead. Think about memory. You can smell it, taste it, and see it. Then, what's interesting is there's the word weird. Originally, it used to mean fate. And after a while, after Charlie begins to get a sense there's something very strange about the school. I'm sorry, not Charlie. The main protagonist, the boy. There's a lot of death attached to the school. Which made me think about, if you are a fan of Ghost Hunters National or Ghost Hunters International, you see those 3 guys with the camera with their EVPs and the special nighttime goggles and all that equipment, trying to record the sounds from beyond the grave, going to these haunted places where there's a lot of spiritual activity. And this is why some of these places have been abandoned, is because there's too much spiritual activity still connected to it. Did reading this book change me in any way? Made me think about how spirits attach themselves to us, and we may not be aware of it completely. Who would I like to share this book with? Well, there it is. I wrote down the Ghost Hunters. What would I hope for them to take away from it? Since they're professionals who investigate locations for clients who want clarity, I would just say that they would get it. If they were to read the story by Avi, I think they would totally understand it. But if you noticed, everyone, on these pages here, I highlighted here, and these 2, those are writing mistakes. I'm still having trouble gripping a pen. I managed to be able to hold a paintbrush and paint for the last 2 days, but because of what's happening in my wrist, it's extremely difficult for me to write properly without the pen, without me losing my grip and the pen becoming loose and making little curly cues whenever I write. And it's very difficult because I had to be able to sign my name. And I literally have to force my fingers to hold the pen, and I have to do it ever so slowly. Sometimes I can write without thinking and not make a mistake, but every so often my hand will just die, and the pen, I lose my grip, and the pen becomes loose, and I create a curly cue. That's been happening for almost 2 years. So, moving on. Not recommended. I would say I'd recommend this for middle. I mean, and it is aimed toward middle grade. I would definitely recommend it. The writing style was good. The message was I should actually say that I don't want to say I loved it. I don't want to say it's just okay. I liked the message. The reading experience was just okay for this one, but good enough. Here's another segment I've yet to write about. It's called The Genre Hound Mystery. What are my favorite mysteries? I'll go into that later. Okay, I'm gonna come back to this one because there's a lot more involved. Let me go. Is this the last entry? Yes. So let me go to the last book of Avi's I read prior to the day before the interview. I read Beyond the Western Sea, book 1. It's called Escape from Home. And I believe I read this the week prior to the 24th when I had the interview with Avi. So I want to say it was around March 20th to the 23rd. The rating, I could probably give it a 4, to be honest with you. But on the cover of the book itself, and I have it right here. Look at the cover. You have these 3 children. If you look at the backgrounds, they look very disheveled. They look like they came from these children. Talk about escape from home. It looks like they've all escaped from something. Each illustrated with a background based on their circumstance. Told me these 3 children they each have separate stories, but they're all interconnected. I don't know. What would you give this? What would you, reader, give this cover? Between a 1 and a 5. What do you think? I don't think I could write any more of Avi's books than I can, but I could probably write down the same thing. The feelings this book evoked in me. Oh my goodness. Anticipation. The story is written as I want to say in Dickensian fashion. Short chapters with gripping cliffhangers, like what we had discussed in the Avi interview. Dickens wrote the Pickwick Papers, Oliver, Great Expectations, but each one was a short chapter that had a gripping ending to it, and it made the readers literally hanging on to the end of each episode, anticipating the next one. And when he told me, I'm like, is this a trilogy? Is it a duology? What is it? Avi basically told me it's one book, but it's split into 2 because there's just so much going on. And what happens with these children, especially the young blonde boy who did come from a well-to-do family, but he was abused and he ran away. And under unfortunate circumstances, he finds himself in the most precarious of situations. Even more precarious than the other 2. So the girl, Mara, and her brother Patrick on the left, they came from Killarney, Ireland. Now, this takes place during the potato famine. Let's look a little bit more into this. And yes, I have it right here. Yeah, after researching, it has to do with Ireland's struggles in the Great Potato Famine, where a lot of Irish immigrants ended up escaping from Ireland to America, but getting to America is easier said than done. So at the beginning, now I hope to interview Avi again. I find it interesting. In the story, Oliver Cromwell Pitts, he also has a sister, and her name is Charity. In this book, the elder sister's name is Mara O'Connell, and she's about possibly 14, 15 at the time of the story. And she has a lot going on. She sort of becomes the head of the household. I'm not going to go too far into it. But the father is already in America. The mother has to go with them. They've lost their house, but the mother decides to stay. And there's a passage in here that explains, well, what her final decision was. And the children are left to their own devices. But not all, not all is safe with the world of London. That's where they find themselves. So as they're escaping with the threat of arrest, Mara whispers, "A curse on this land. And may I keep angry with its memory." There are those of us who have had circumstances occur in our lifetime where no matter how much we try to get away from it, our memories, we are, every time when we reflect on that memory, we are angry. I've had that. Another quote by Mara, "I've but one head and it's full of caring for both of us." So Mara doesn't have time for distractions. Her her job, her duty is to make sure she and her brother get to America no matter what. And they're going to do it legitimately. That's what Mara is trying to do. That's why she says, I have but one head, not many, and it's just for caring for the both of us. Their mother, Mrs. Annie O'Connell, at the beginning, just when they're about to board the ship, she says, it would be better for me to die at home. The earth will know me there. That was a creepy passage. Oh my goodness. But there is not a quote from the young boy Lawrence, who does come from a well-to-do family, but he's also on his way to America because he doesn't feel like there's any opportunity left for him. What happens to that boy is just so, it's beyond. It's like, this is one of the reasons why I can't stand watching Oliver. I'm not even sure if I can read the story by Dickens. The horrors of what happens to these children in an adult world, the people that they look up to trust in times of peril, of uncertainty. And there are adults who commit treason and lie to these kids. It's crazy. Did reading this book change me in any way? Well, this is one of those times where I read a book and, like a psychological thriller, I wanted to jump out of my seat so many times because that's what the book does. It's Dickensian fashion. It leaves you hanging onto the grip of each episode. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Keep going. And sometimes you just need a breather. You just need a breather. Sometimes, yes, I wrote down, this is why my writing is really bad. Sometimes I hyperventilated. As a writer, it made me question if I could tolerate my own storytelling. I've had a bunch of stories I've been working on over the years, and there's images that I see in my head as I'm writing, and I'm looking at it going, my goodness, if I write this, am I going to pass out myself? So it's almost like that's interesting what Avi had said about self-censorship, censoring what others might not agree with. It's, Who would I like to share this book with? We call her Lady Pamela Franklin, and she's a British neighbor of ours who lives close by. She wrote a children's story that didn't really take off the ground. I guess she was taking a writing course with a writer's club, and she didn't really care what was going on. But I helped to kind of to illustrate it for her, and she loved it. But with me, so I wrote, as someone from the British Isles, I would want her to really grip the ways of storytelling to make readers continue to read on, make them come back, because that's what Dickens did. He made his readers come back. That's what a lot of writers are meant to do. Make them keep coming back for more. If it's a gripping tale, they want to know more about it. Let's keep up the momentum. The ratings, okay, this is what I wrote down here. This is a little bit different from what from what I'm used to. But the writing style, I loved it. The message, what was the message? Be aware of who to trust. Be vigilant, because you might not know who you're talking to. The reading experience, I loved it, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy it. I said it was scary. It was a scary but loving, it was a loving but scary experience reading the story. Psychologically, it was too much, but for dramatic purposes, I could see it happening. So, I don't know about you. I do not believe I am dyslexic, like Salma Hayek had mentioned in First We Feast on the Hot Ones. But my mind works like a camera. Sometimes I don't even realize that I'm reading the writing before me. Oftentimes the words will just take on an image of someone or the setting, and my mind starts to act like a camera, and it just continues to follow through without stopping. And remember, I don't recall reading. I don't remember reading the words that are on the page. I just remember the images that came to me instantaneous like that as I was reading. So let's go back one entry because this one has a lot going for it.